Welcome to a small video on how to prepare, plan, write and present your TOK presentation. I'd like to make 3 videos here in a series so that we can get some consistency into our teaching and learning for TOK. And the first video will be about general understanding of the presentation and the material surrounding it. Then we'll look at a second video on planning and writing it. And then a third video will really focus on the TKPPD because that's a very important form to fill in. So what is the presentation? It's the first of the major pieces of assessment in TOK, and sometimes it sneaks up on us. It comes towards the end of year 11 and we've been learning some content and theories about knowledge. And we need to be really switched on here, because if we don't put any effort in, we're going to be looking like this little guy on the left. And if we put some effort in, things will probably go well. Just like anything else in your studies or in your IB world, you really need to put in some effort here, and you'll have some good results that will come out of it. And most importantly, you'll learn some good things. As the first piece of summative assessment, we really need to be focused on the presentation, because it's going to be worth 10 marks or 33% of your final grade. And if you leave it now and you don't put in an effort for this one, you'll find that by the time you get to later on in grade 12, when you're writing the essay, you'll be full of regret, because you won't be able to go for those inner core points because you won't have made the effort on your presentation. And it won't matter even if you do a brilliant essay, you'll still be behind a little bit. So the marks overall in TOK are 20 marks for the essay, a mark out of 10, which is doubled, and then the mark for the presentation, and this adds up to a total of 30. And unlike your other IB subjects, the grade is going to be an A, B, C, D, E grade, and we'll have a look at a minute at the matrix. So if you were to get a 2 for TOK presentation now, because you don't make too much effort and you sort of only just understood what was going on, then later on you come to do your essay. Let's say you get a 2 for the essay, so that doubles. So that means you got 4 plus 2, which puts you on a 6. So you're solidly in this D area, so you're not looking at getting any inner core points. So it really pays to try and make an effort on your TOK presentation early on, and try to get a 4 or 5 or 6 even, or higher would be great. But if you can give yourself a good grounding, you'll make good progress. So here's the inner core matrix, and the really strong message here I'd like you to get is that don't wait till later on and hope for inner core points, or suddenly freak out at the end of grade 12 and realise that if you'd have done some more work, you might be able to go into that better university course. Do the work now and have no regrets. So you can see that if you get a D in TOK, and a D for your EE, then you're not going to get any inner core points. If you get a B for TOK, say, and a D for your extended essay, then you're going to get 1. So you can see through here the grades and how they're worked out. Alright, so we'll start straight in now into the presentation and the criteria. And just above the criteria, we've got this little bit of an explanation here, and it's really important to look at this section here. Does the presenter succeed in showing how TOK concepts can have practical application? So we want to be looking at the TOK world and the theory behind what's going on in the real world, and try to understand that. And we really need to be looking at describing the real life situation, but not letting that overpower everything. Extracting your knowledge question out of this and identifying different perspectives from that real life situation, trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes, trying to find examples and arguments out of that, and then also trying to relate your findings analysis back into other real life situations, which this is actually quite well reflected in the presentation diagram, which we'll look at a little bit later. The more technical side of how your presentation is going to be marked can be seen on this sheet. And if we just have a look here at level 3 or satisfactory, you'll be in the 5 to 6 bracket out of 10. So the presentation identifies a knowledge question. You've got some connection to specified real life situations. You've made an argument, adequate argument is the word there. and there's some awareness of the significance. A lot of people forget this part about the significance. So if we look down the bottom, then we're looking at your arguments, and your essay is relevant and adequate, if not a little predictable. So if you want to get into the higher brackets here, you have to be starting to, your essay needs to feel like it's really credible and analytical, and or discerning and insightful. And so you're probably more than capable of getting into these upper brackets, and the people who do get here, they just put in more effort than the other people. So we'll start here now with the theory of knowledge presentation structure, which is really good, and I would really advise you to be using this. In my experience, people who don't follow this and type their plan on this page really struggle to understand and make a relevant presentation. So we need to find a real life situation, and we'll discuss how to find one of those in an article or a magazine. We need to try and extract a knowledge issue out of that. So we're going to move from the real world here above the line, the middle line, the watermark. We're going to move down into a knowledge issue. So we're going to try and find a knowledge issue, and then we're going to try and analyze that, and we're going to progress here across to the right, and we're going to try and develop our thinking and our arguments and our analysis, and then we're going to try and come back up into real life situation here, and we're going to try and find a couple of other examples that might shed light and add some meaning to our first real life situation, and somehow show that our knowledge issue is somehow typical and can be seen in many other aspects of our world. So just quickly, the presentation must be based on a real life scenario, which must raise some knowledge claims. The knowledge claims must lead to identification of knowledge issue. The knowledge issues are questions about these claims, and they must be open-ended questions that are explicitly about the knowledge itself, not more about the real life situation. So this slide just talks a little bit about what good knowledge issues are. They're open-ended questions, and they're explicitly about knowledge. They're not subject specific, and they don't contain just statements like the earth is round, or do eggs contain cholesterol. So they'd be more like, how do we know the earth is round, or what evidence do we have for egg yolks containing cholesterol? Okay, so these aren't great examples yet, but they're likely to lead to more discussions about the nature of knowledge, not about the real life situation about eggs. And so good knowledge issues are worded in the language of TOK, so that we become more objective, and we start to be looking at interpretations and reasons and areas of knowledge to try and understand them. So in summary, they're explicitly about knowledge, they're open-ended, they're an open question, and they're couched in general terms using TOK vocab and concepts. And I'll show you how to get some more concepts and vocab in later. And you need to be structured about making a knowledge question, because it's not easy to get a knowledge issue out of a situation, out of a real life situation, and so you need to follow a process. You need to think about using some sentence starters like this. So, what are the factors, or how might we, or what is it about this situation that means X and Y? What counts for knowledge in this situation, or is it more real to think this, or what are the reasons? So use some sentence starters like this. Just to help you, I've made what I've called this knowledge question builder. It's like a pokey machine for TOK questions. So you might have some sentence starters like what contributes. Then you might have some linking words here to, belief in mathematics. So, that's just one example if you follow it through. What relationship does bias have to faith or reason? And then you might throw in some words here. You've got TOK concept words, or you could throw in some more subject-specific words maybe. But the TOK concept words are going to be probably better, because they're going to be more general and less specific and more open-ended. So here's an example of finding a knowledge issue from an article about acupuncture, for instance. So you start off with some information about that, and then you might say that you might make a knowledge claim like acupuncture is a form of alternative medicine, and then you might think of it as a poor knowledge issue. Will acupuncture heal a certain medical condition such as asthma? And then maybe drive it a little bit further and say, how could we test whether acupuncture is effective? And then we get right down here, we sort of extract it down right to a good knowledge issue. How can two different systems of knowledge, alternate and modern medicine, both give valid explanations for the same phenomena? So now we're starting to look at the knowledge behind the situation, not the specific things about alternative medicine. And it's really easy in TOK to actually get caught up in the actual real life situation and not drive it down into knowledge. So the IB make these two great sheets about knowledge questions. So and we've got the real life situations across the bottom here, and they're driving up towards really good examples. And we've got 5 really cool examples here. So here's the acupuncture one. Let's look at a new government policy. So it's about stopping teenagers smoking. All right, so still a closed question and it's subject specific, etc. So then we move on to, will predictions on teenage smoking turn out to be correct? So it's a little bit more. It's now about predictions, so it's a little bit more about knowledge. Then we might move up to, how can we use models to predict crime waves? So it's a little bit more about models and knowledge and prediction. And then, to what extent can human sciences, so we're now linking some TOK concepts in here, use mathematical techniques to make accurate predictions? So we're getting now to a real question that can be applied to different real life situations when we come back up above the TOK waterline. And I'd really encourage you to have a play around with this sheet, because this is another IB sheet and it actually sort of asks you to drive up this question yourself, and it's got the explanations on the left. You put in your topic, and you can just follow the examples on the 2 sheets, and it will be really helpful to practice on. Another way of thinking about it is to just generate a knowledge claim and a counterclaim from any stimulus that you can find. Try and identify then or list the WOCs, the ways of knowing and how they might apply, and then discuss or think about thinkers and theories and that might be applying to this situation, like TOK concepts, and then try to focus on a particular part of the knowledge framework. And I'll show you on the next slide how this can happen. Okay, so we've got a news story here. Maybe it's about the atomic bomb being dropped in World War II. So you might start with a knowledge claim such as the USA dropped the first atomic bomb. So it's a claim. It's, is it true or is it not true? Then we can look at trying to drive it to a poor knowledge question. So why did the USA drop the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II? Then we can go a bit better. Was it ethical to drop the bombs? And then finally, is it ever ethical to destroy life? So then, therefore, you can see we can find other situations in our world where it may be applicable to this situation. I'm going to race through some stimulus now. You can find inspiration for this and to drive these knowledge questions in a lot of different places. So here's one about tasers. There's another one here about pandemics. Poor knowledge issue down to a good knowledge issue. You can pause this screen and look at it if you like. You can get inspiration in a lot of different places. Films are a good place. Books are another good place to find information. And world events, current events and articles and things like that are always great. And the more you can find that's controversial, the better. The one thing you've got to constantly remember, though, is you've always got to come back up into the real world situation and somehow, or find that there's somehow typical in your question can somehow be sort of applied to other situations, and therefore it will demonstrate and support your real life situation in the first place and help explain how you've interpreted it. Okay, I'm going to finish this recording here, and in the next recording we will discuss a little bit more about planning, but how to actually analyze things and try and pick up some marks there. Thank you.